What is going on, everyone? This is Speg, and welcome to the 14th mission in my Halo 2 Anniversary Legendary Walkthrough. In this guide, I'll be covering High Charity, the second to last mission in the game, and it's also the final one as the Master Chief.
Your pal. Where's he going?
Earth. To finish what we started. And this time, none of you will be left behind.
That structure in the center of the city, it's a Forerunner ship. And Truth is heading straight for it. If he leads the Covenant fleet to Earth, they won't stand a chance. You have to stop him.
That brute has the index. And Miranda and Johnson. He can activate the ring.
If he does, I'll detonate In Amber Clad's reactor just like we did the Autumn's. The blast will destroy this city and the ring. Not a very original plan, but we know it'll work. No, I don't want to chance a remote detonation. I need to stay here.
We were just a diversion. Amber Clad was always its intended vector. There's a conduit connecting this tower to the ship. Head back inside. I'll lead you to it.
As you're battling your way up to the Crash Pelican, you'll face off against a number of combat forms and perhaps some surviving Covenant. The only combat forms you should really have concern over are the ones that have a shotgun equipped. The rest you can use the energy sword against quite easily. After you cleared out this part, then go over to the Pelican and grab this rocket launcher. Now when I enter this room, I like to fire off at least one rocket against the brutes down below.
We don't have time for this, Chief. Truth's Phantom is nearing the Forerunner ship.
What will happen with this group of brutes is sometimes they'll come after you, other times they might get distracted by the flood. These flood will spawn in behind them, and if they start to gather up, then use your rocket launcher to take them on. If you run dry of the rocket launcher, then resort to grenades, the carbine, or the energy sword. Again, like the initial group of enemies, one of these combat forms may have a shotgun equipped, so keep aware of that.
I'll disable this lift once you reach the top. That'll slow them down. I hope.
Shall we let the flood consume our holy city? Turn my charity into another wreckage. No enemy has ever withstood our might. Flood too shall fail.
I'll do what I can to slow the body sequence. There's something inside the ship, a presence, fighting back. For a Covenant construct, it's unusually formidable.
Now as you come into this chamber after taking the lift up, you'll notice that the drones that spawn in will go over to the left towards this adjacent platform. If you let the drones live, they can do a pretty decent amount of damage against the Flood over here. But since I ended up killing those drones early, then you'll probably have to deal with a small handful of combat forms yourself. I don't think I showed it too well, but there is a case of beam rifles aside from the one that I picked up in that hallway when you come into this chamber. The beam rifle works pretty well against combat forms from range as long as you land headshots, but I didn't really feel like going back to grab a fresh one. Now after you take the second light bridge over, you'll notice a small group of drones that spawns through the doorway to your left. About a full clip of the carbine will take them out. But if you brought the beam rifle along, that is totally fine. Then after dealing with those drones, you'll have 3 more combat forms that spawn through this door. I like to stick one of them with a plasma grenade just to weaken them a little bit. If you need a fresh energy sword pickup, there's one next to that deceased elite. After you approach this intersection, you'll trigger a couple of combat forms and 3 carrier forms to spawn in. Let the combat forms pass through and go into the next segment of hallway, and then deal with the combat forms behind them before you move on. If you allowed the Flood to enter this room, those combat forms that I mentioned, they will usually end up winning this battle against the Covenant. Sometimes they'll end up retreating into this next area, so you'll have to track them down a little bit. As you get to this stretch, it's quite possible that you'll have some combat forms that will spawn in from the ceilings. Other times they may also spawn in behind you along with these carrier forms. And then there's also the rare possibility that nothing will spawn in.
Parasite did not defeat the Forerunners, and it shall not defeat us.
Arrogant creature. Your deaths will be instantaneous, while we shall suffer the progress of infinitude.
As you come into this area where there's some natural rock formations, you'll have a small squad of Covenant, which will consist of a couple of brutes, some jackals. One of them happens to be a sniper, but it's quite possible that you might not end up killing that sniper because the Flood will end up taking care of him. And then once you clear out the Covenant, I would recommend doing that first, and then take on the group of combat forms remaining. One of those guys may have a rocket launcher, so try to keep your distance, or at least try to play it wise against him if you want to tussle with him at close range.
part of the tower are particularly robust.
Whosoever is gripped by fear, take heed. I am the prophet of truth, and I am not afraid. Noble mercy is here, at my side. His wise counsel ever in my ears.
We exist together now. Two corpses in one grave.
This little area is very much identical to the last one that we passed through with the brutes, jackals, and the combat forms. Except in this area, you'll have to deal with drones. And also on top of that, you may have some invisible flood. And it's quite possible one of these invisible combat forms would have a rocket launcher in possession, but I don't think that's the case here. Either way, the drones will do a pretty decent job against these combat forms, especially if you killed the one with the rocket launcher initially.
Apparently these are the Prophet Hierarch's private quarters, their inner sanctum.
Now, as was the case here, it's very possible that one of these combat forms that you spawn in during this intersection will have a shotgun in his hands. If it happens to spawn to your left, that will likely be the case, so try to back away, use your grenades and the carbine to take him on. Now, after I take this elevator up to the sanctum, what I like to do is kill the two grunts that I see in close proximity and then stay back and let the flood spawn in.
This crisis will not be the end of us. It is but one last turn before journey and salvation.
Now, along with the flood, there's also another group of Covenant on the far end near the door that we need to have access to. There's going to be a couple of honor guard brutes, some more jackals, including one that has a beam rifle. So for this bit, I just like to let the flood spawn in, do as much damage as possible, even if that means they win this battle, and then clean up after them. Again, kind of like the last major conflict that we had, there's going to be some more invisible flood. Besides some of the flood that have active camo, it's quite possible one of these guys has a sniper rifle. And those guys are just about as dangerous as the jackal snipers that you'll face throughout this game. So at this time, it looks like the flood have cleared out this area. And there's just one combat form left standing. Nope. Take that back. There's probably 4 of them, it looks like.
can't stall the launch sequence much longer. The next lift will take you up to the conduit. Hurry!
Before I take this gravity lift up to the conduit, I do like to grab the fresh energy sword off the console, and there's also a fresh beam rifle in the corner.
I knew the Covenant was good at repurposing Forerunner technology, but this is amazing. They've been using the Forerunner ship's engines as an energy source for the city. The ship isn't so much launching as it is disengaging, uncoupling itself from High Charity's power grid. Stopping truth, that's all that matters.
Now is the time of our unworlding. The moment we shall all become as gods.
You know the plan. You've got to stop truth. I've got to handle the index. Go!
Now is the time of our unworlding. One moment we shall all become as gods.
Forget about the flood. You've got to get aboard.
Now, as we're in the final area, this is a part that normally I would rather just run through and not deal with any of the brutes or the flood that are spawning in. But since I do want to try to go for full completion, I am going to try to stick around, deal with these combat forms and any brutes that might be remaining. The main reason why I do bring the beam rifle along for this part is just to clear out that sniper on the far end. But if you still have it, then you could certainly use it against these combat forms at long range. At some point, I would like to grab a bow rifle or another carbine instead of having to use the beam rifle against these remaining enemies. But if you can try to single out these combat forms, you could alternatively use the energy sword instead. A lot of combat forms will spawn during this part, so if you end up leaving some of the brutes alone, it's quite possible they can do a pretty good job of clearing out this section. And then when you're all clear, then you can head over to Cortana, and that will complete the level.
I have to stay here, Chief.
Chief, when you get to Earth, good luck.
After I'm through with truth.
Don't make a girl a promise if you know you can't keep it.
And with that, this will conclude the second to last mission in the game, and also the final one where we play as the Master Chief. Probably one of the easiest levels in the game, admittingly, in spite of the fact there are some difficult enemies in this mission. But you'll probably, depending on your playstyle, you could certainly make the case that this will be the shortest mission that you'll play through, assuming you're not speedrunning or skipping any major encounters throughout the level. But yeah, really just be really concerned about some of the flood that you face throughout this level, perhaps some of the brutes. But honestly, this, with the jackal snipers that you have in this mission, this level is one where I'd say they're almost a non-factor if you are kind of playing it smart and letting the flood do their job and really distracting the Covenant. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for tuning in on this episode and even all my previous videos. I greatly appreciate the support, all the comments, and just being able to respond to everyone in terms of strategy, or just anyone who's really enjoyed watching these guides. I do enjoyed reading through those comments and getting back to all you viewers. And with that, I will end up wrapping up this game in the next video. We'll have the Great Journey. Final level in the game, we'll be going back to the Arbiter. Should be a fun level and definitely a slightly more challenging mission compared to this one. Until then, I'll catch you all later.